Okay, so the intake manifold is off. The air box, the air box, we'll call it air box. The air box is off. And then they also have one of these, this is a sound dampener, basically, that they put underneath the intake manifold because these high pressure fuel pumps can be quite a bit noisy. But that's what we got. We got that all off. These are kind of a pain. Like I said, you got your 4 right here. And your 3 over here, that's for the wiring harness. They have little clips. But that's not even the hard part. The hard part is there's 1, 2, and 3 back there on this. And it's damn near impossible to get your hands behind there. And they unfortunately broke right there and there. So I got to get new ones of that. But then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so there's actually 10 on that. Then, like I said, the plugs and the harness and all that stuff, you got to take all that stuff off, pull it out, and go from there. Now, I will come over to the car, or the truck, and I'll show you. Let me kind of get up in here, because this is a pain in the butt to get up in. But, anyway, so we get up in here, and we have right there, that little guy right there, that's the high pressure fuel pump. You have your inlet line right there. Then you got a hard line that goes in to provide the fuel. And then it gets pressurized and it comes out and it goes to right here. And then that one splits it into 2, one for each fuel rail. Because you got your passenger side, you got your driver's side. So one of them feeds the driver's side and then the other one goes around and feeds the passenger side. Then you have your fuel injectors. They're right there. On this specific setup, this is called a direct injection system. And the reason they call it a direct injection is unlike the old LS53s and 6.0s and 4.8s and all that stuff, these injectors were in the intake manifold. These are directly in each cylinder. They're directly in the actual head. They're built and they go straight in there. Problems with those are a couple. I mean, they have benefits. You get more fuel, you can get more power out of it. And it's a better burn. Problem with these direct injected things is you end up getting massive carbon buildup inside. Let's see if I can get them to show a little bit better. You get massive carbon buildup inside the intake valves. Yep, there we go. This one's getting a little bit. It's not horrible, but you can kind of see it. It's got that carbon buildup on the back side of the valve right there, or the valve right there. They're not all, I already looked at them before I started making this video. They're not all horribly bad. So there's nothing to be concerned about right there. I do recommend every once in a while throwing direct injection solvent stuff in the gas. It kind of just helps clean it all up and gets the carbon deposits and build up off of there and stuff like that. But back on to topic. So that right there, that pump right there, what that does is it takes the normal fuel pressure, you got your 50 or 60 pounds of pressure that comes out of your tank, out of your first fuel pump, and it goes to this one. And then this one converts it from 50, 60 pounds all the way up, in some cases, to 30 to 40,000 PSI. This one, not specifically that much, but, like diesels and stuff like that run those injection pumps, those will run, 30, 40,000 PSI because they need to atomize that fuel or that diesel a lot more because they don't use spark plugs. They use combustion or the pressure to cause the heat and ignite the diesel fluid. But anyway, that's beside the point. On this one, so we're going to be taking that bolt, this line, that plug or that harness plug, and then that line completely off. Once we get that off, then we can look at it a little bit more in detail so you can kind of understand. On a side note, I didn't make this in the previous video, but I'm going to make it now. Always make sure disconnect your battery terminal. Pull the negative off. That way, when you're working with all this electrical stuff, you don't screw anything up. I mean, you have your alternator wire, which is a direct power wire right here. In this case, you don't have to take it off, but if you were to say take it off, you don't want to run the risk of arcing and causing electrical damage to the vehicle. So, just a forewarning. But anyway, I will be back, and then we will look at those. This is part 2, okay? I will be back, and we will look at that high-pressure fuel pump just so you can kind of get an understanding of what it looks like and how it works. Okay, so we're back. Got the old one out. like I said, there's two 13mm bolts that hold it onto the actual block itself. And then you have two hard lines. This one is a 17mm wrench that you just loosen that nut on, or that threaded line on right there. And then this one you actually have to use a special fuel tool or fuel line removal tool, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, getting to the part, what happens is these start failing on the inside. So when the fuel comes in and gets pressurized by this little spring and cylinder, as you can kind of see the cylinder like right inside there, that cylinder goes up and it pressurizes the fuel, and then from here it goes to that little two-way I was showing you, to each of the rails into the fuel injectors. Problem is, when the seals inside here start failing, when this little cylinder goes up from the cam lobe, fuel goes out. It comes down, and it's not like it's like, you know, a whole bunch of fuel, like just squirt, you know, a bunch of fuel. It's mist. It'll mist inside of the crankcase. And then that's how you get your diluted oil. You get that raw fuel smell inside of your oil, and you know, miles per gallon decreases. You end up with all sorts of codes off of your O2 sensors and other sensors as well, possibly in the future. Now here's the new one, okay? And that one, the part number for it, I'll get the box here and just kind of show it to you real quick. That is the GM part number right there, is 127-28002. The reason I bring that up is because you can go to O'Reilly's or Napa or Advanced or anywhere that you want to go, and you can get, you know, a cheaper fuel pump if you wanted to. But the problem is, you run the risk of having a fuel pump that is not going to go well with the system. GM, for some reason, don't ask me why, is not a fan of aftermarket parts when it comes to crank and cam sensors, coolant sensors, oil pressure sensors, all that, even this, the fuel pumps themselves. GM vehicles are not very happy with those, okay? So go OEM. Get yourself a GM genuine part, especially with these. Don't cheap out on these. I mean, this is a big deal. You know, this is the difference between catastrophic failure and your engine performing at optimal, you know? So this is the brand new fuel pump, as you can see, like I showed you. GM fuel pump, part numbers and everything. Comes with a new gasket, comes with new bolts, along with the backing plate right there, because you got a wiring harness that goes behind here and everything, so it needs to protect it, and then you got your plug that goes in there. Along with these that we're replacing, like I said, we're going to be replacing the two hard lines for this, which I have the old ones. I'll show you what they look like. Right here's the one that goes right there on that guy, and that feeds the fuel. It goes to here and it feeds into the inlet port of that fuel pump, okay? And then you have this one right here. This one goes on the other side of the fuel pump, and then it goes into that little two-way connector right there, and feeds the fuel into that for the fuel rails and injectors right there. Anyway, in this case, we're going to get this taken care of so we can get the customer's fuel mileage back, and that way he doesn't end up with some major internal damage due to the leaking fuel inside of the oil and everything. Another thing I'll kind of show you here, just to kind of, if I can get this to sit properly, there we go. Just to kind of give you a little perspective. If you look at this spring versus this spring, I know it's kind of hard to see it maybe on a camera, but the comparison between these two springs, okay? This spring versus this spring, you can easily tell that this one is kind of worn. It's a little bit higher up. This one's a little longer. That's also another indicator that they're starting to fail, is when you see those springs start going bad too. So, but anyway, this is part 2. Like I said, I will be making a part 3 once everything is back together, and show you the fuel trim data once I get it all back together on my scanner, so you guys can see what I'm talking about.